you get to hear practically about these cases? I mean, are you embedded in the organizational process to design how insolvency is hard? Let's just call the knowledge management team.
Yeah, so there are two. It's a really good question. There are 2 or 3 places that we're specifically tied into. The past 2 companies I've worked here both have a fellows program, which is sort of you can go a management route in your career and manage more and more people and manager of organizations, or you can go a technical route where you're not necessarily managing people, you're getting better and better at your specific area of technology. We often call that a fellows program. We've made it a requirement of the fellows program. Once you get to the top level of being a fellow, you are required to start a knowledge transfer team. Whether you're retiring anytime soon or not, it's part of the fellows program. At BAE Systems, we also have a very robust process for project management. We're embedding, it's already in there, but we're looking to get even more detailed knowledge transfer process into several steps of our project management approach. So the very first thing we do when we look at whether we're going to bid and go try and win work or not, and then right when we win, if we do win that work, looking back and saying, how have we done this in the past? How could we bid better? We want to make sure we are the best provider for that work, running a knowledge transfer team to make sure that we're actually bringing the best of what we've ever learned in our organization to that. So we call it lifecycle management, so that process and the fellows program are 2. In all honesty, it's a very simple website. We have a global website, all employees have access to it inside the company, and it basically lists every single active knowledge transfer team in case you're interested. These people are, like say, often 2-3 jobs away from having a role like this. You often find the best professionals in a completely different function, in a completely different area of the business. A finance person looking to become an IT person, or a program manager looking to become an engineer. Very diverse group of skills. The more public we can be with listing those teams, and then all of the codification stuff is relatively easy. Whatever they write down, it's the application step where they've gone out and practiced it. That's where by listing the names, anybody can come in and search and say, wait, I saw you ran a team on naval architects. I missed it. I just joined your company. Can I see that 5 people that were part of that team and go talk to them? Oh, 2 of them have left, but 3 are still here. Great, I'm going to reach out for those 3. So it sort of slowly becomes part of the culture that way.
I just need to poke in here for a second because there's some wonderful confirmation of some of the things you've been studying in this class this week. 2 programs you mentioned. One was the fellows program, and the other is the ability to go become the professional, become somebody down there who's not necessarily in that career track right now, but go in there and find out about that career track. Does that tie together any of the concepts we've been talking about, one in particular? Are people beginning to find out what their real traits are, what they really would love to do, but they may not see any opportunity to do it? What if their traits say you really aren't, you're not destined to be in the management ranks, you don't deal with people well enough, you can learn how to be a little bit better, but if you don't love to do it, you shouldn't be probably managing people, but maybe you love to do your technology thing. Very sophisticated companies today, and I don't know whether it's the American side or the British side of BAE Systems that's doing that, but over in America we have a number of companies getting into that
fellows program.
Because the company I was in, that was back in the early 1990s. Mm-hmm. That allows people to stick to what they're good at, what they love to do. Right? If you're very analytical and you don't want to manage people, you just want to be that kind of a scientist, you can have a career track that you end up making as much money and having as much prestige, if that's what's important to you, as the person who becomes a vice president. If money and prestige isn't as important to you, but doing what you love to do is important, either way you got both, right? So having a fellows, we call it senior technical fellows, but whatever you call it, something like a fellow program is one way. And the other is the ability to go find out what it really means to have a job in that kind of role. Because it's one thing to guess. You say, my traits are this and this and this, but where did that fit in the company? Now you can go out and dabble and find out where you really fit in. So, and because you've been in that group with other people, you've built a relationship there, you might get hired over into that department because they see how bright a person you are and you really love that kind of work. Very powerful.
So let me try I feel like most of these I've briefly touched on, come back to any of them, but let's do this 5th step of, so there's the 4 steps, that's documented, that is the approach. The fifth step we've debated, and we have not done it officially, is to add a fifth measurement step and actually require the team to measure how effective they were or ineffective or whatever we determined to be the best kind of measurement for it. Today, what we do is 90 days after the completion, after the final application has been run, so they've answered all their questions and they've practiced all of their questions. 12, 15, 18 meetings in, they're done. We find out that they're done often because we facilitated it or because we just kept up with them, had conversations going on. 90 days later, we send a single email question to each of the team members. And it is by design this simple. We ask them, did you complete individually the knowledge transfer process? That's it. Did you complete it? Because what we found from the external universities is that if you go through all 4 of those steps, it's scientifically, the way they measured it, the 96% of unique and critical knowledge is being transferred by talking about it and practicing it. That's what the external universities said. So all we're asking is, did you complete? And by them saying yes or no, what we look for is, if it's about 5 people on a team, if all 5 people say yes, we completed it, we mark the team as a success. If one person out of the 5 or more says they did not complete, then we mark the team as a failure. And that's how we measure it.
One question. I think, it is easy to measure the completeness in the first 3 phases, but the most difficult is to measure the application itself, right?
Sure.
Because until you document everything, you have a hard copy or a document of something.
That's really funny. Okay.
But then in the 4th phase, how do you,
Yep. So all we're looking for in that 4th step, in the way we've designed it, is that they take, question number 1 and they practice it. So the team itself designs the simulation or the e-learning or the physically going out to a space and doing some kind of activity. They design the actual exercise to practice it. As long as they participate, you're right. This is where the weakness in measurement comes in. And what I kind of said early up front, this is where the submarines example or the Lockheed NASA example, the story of the customer is happy, we haven't had any bumps in the road on that contract, we tend to chalk that up as the best measurement we can have. The process is working. So could it be improved? Absolutely. How much time and effort would that take? What kind of skill set would we need for someone to come in and measure it for us? We haven't tried it yet. Maybe you can help us. Come join us.
One of the metrics that came out of some of the earlier research was the duration of these projects. There was a time when you said if people stuck at this for 3 months, you had a 91% success rate. But if people thought somebody could retire 2 weeks from now, and you could scramble through and do one of these things, I think it was 24% success rate.
It was much, much lower. I don't remember the exact number.
24%.
It was very low.
So
yep.
there's a time variable or metric to this. If you want to invest time in this, you have to invest the full amount of time, which is something like 3 months, in which case you get a very high percentage of success. If you cut that really short thing, we'll just do it quick and dirty, you might as well not even be doing it all.
We do, I'll show this one really quick. This helps. We actually have 3 things that we watch for now, which is new. We have this one, and this one. So in terms of percentage of unique and critical knowledge, when we go back and measure, when we do hard measurement work to say, how much knowledge did you need? What was the gap? Did you gain it or not? We call this elements of knowledge transfer. So this is just people talking. This is just whatever they did. It's usually 2 people get together and talk about someone that's retiring or someone that's being made redundant. The number I often put there is 46%. So you could throw all kinds of numbers out, but it's a less than half if people just get together and talk. Unique and critical knowledge, because there's no plan, there's no practice. This is people talking. What I just shared with you, the knowledge transfer process, has been measured externally at 96%. If you go through those 4 steps, 96% of unique and critical knowledge of everyone on that team will be maintained and grown. It's an emergent process. We actually have a 3rd process This one has been measured at 99%. So it depends how much time and money and investment you're willing to put in. So in a way, you might now be thinking, wait a minute, you just showed me a 96%. Why didn't you show me the 99%? This one takes between 2 and 3 years to run, and most of our teams are not even done yet because this is so detailed. One of the only differences between this so this is, like I say, 12 weeks on average, an hour a week. This is 2 to 3 years on average, and we still don't have an average because we haven't run enough teams. It's called Knowledge Management Action Planning if you Google it. Rolls-Royce is the original creator of it. 99% because every single one of those 4 steps, plus they've added in some detailed additional steps, requires senior level approval before they move to the next step. So at every single step, forming the team, they have to then get approval and say, these are the correct people to be on this team. Then they go to creating a plan. They have to get approval from all kinds of stakeholders saying, these are the correct questions to answer. Then they have to go in and actually talk about each one of those, get approval that they covered everything that needed. They bring in other, so you can imagine this is now 2, 3, 4 year process, but it is to the point of you didn't miss anything. So this is your trade-off of how much time and investment are you willing to put into. And this, I'm also, the reason I share this for you is knowledge transfer process is one 4-step process that we love. It's very effective. It is not the final answer. This is one more experiment, one more offer for you to take back to your organizations, try it, tweak it, and then start talking about it on Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever you're connected so that we can all.
In economics is a theory of the law of diminishing returns. And that's what we might be seeing here. You know, from 12 weeks
to 3 years.
To 3 years or something, 99%. What's the trade-off? There's a law of diminishing returns. The investment in that last 3% of knowledge mastery could be tremendous, maybe unaffordable.
But if your customer demands it, then you may have to, which is what we've run into. Some customers will demand the authority and the signatures before things can be moved on.
Nobody has another question? I have one more. Oh, go ahead.
Yes, if you have the knowledge transfer process, and that's triggered by, say, the departure of a key person.
Sure.
It sounds like you're a process improvement guy as well.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we build quality into a process? So it's always occurring. In knowledge transfer, why wouldn't we look at a process that has that transfer built into it? And it's not triggered by just one key event.
Yeah, love it.
We could do it during Knowledge Cafe.
Yeah, I love it.
Amen.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. All I could say is maybe because it's such an emergent process during these conversations, people are talking about are we having the right conversations? The original 20 or 30 questions often, they go off on other areas and talk about other knowledge transfer teams get created. So that's about as close in reality as I've seen, but you're right. Let's build it in. Let's do it. Document it up. I'm really thinking, so this is good. We're getting some energy. I'd love to have you, let's just do it at your tables. You may have to kind of switch your chairs around a little bit. Let's just do it quick. Let's say 10 minutes. So I'll give you a 2-minute warning. Take 10 minutes. At your organization, would this work or would it not work? And why? Tell me why. Why won't this work?
I can tell you my example is shared with here the team is.
Can I just say something? And I'm going to interrupt and hand right over to you guys. This group, although they did that, it was very interesting dynamic. As soon as they raised the negative, they worked very quickly to get the answer to solve that. So,
nice.
And then we needed to test them with you whether that actually works. So, sorry, Anna.
Yeah.
We thought about HR being one of the big challengers of this idea.
Sure.
Because it's not all the time that we have clearly appointed someone that is going to be retired. So you have this program fellows, which becomes a recurrent activity. But in cases like ours that we don't have this recurrent program to implement it, could be not well seen by HR. So we come up with some ideas like, what if we tried this to be recurrent? What if? So we were talking about the problem, but also about the solution.
Nice. Did you have any other solutions, or does that spark anything for anybody else in the room? Would HR challenge it for you too?
I don't know, I think we had maybe a similar, or I had a similar sort of challenge with it, is that I don't know that we, in our organisation, would always have that sort of lead time. Your people either leave relatively quickly, sometimes immediately when they may go to a competitor or something like that, or they're made redundant. So I'm not sure that there would be commonly that sort of lead time to know I've got 3 months or even 4 weeks to try and run through this sort of process.
That one actually makes me think of the positive, that sometimes just by sharing this process, the positive side is we've never really thought about this. Maybe we should do something, and that conversation pops up. Because if you start talking to individuals, the individuals often know, well, if we lost Joe Bloggs over here, we'd be in real trouble. People just kind of know that, but it's not really talked about much. The HR thing. So I've been in HR for 11 years now. No.
We said there could be good guys.
I'm not.
Flying it under your flag. It's actually something that you guys were, your initiative.
I'm proud to say, on video, I'm not a great fit in HR.
You didn't strike us.
No. HR speak for you will be succession planning and onboarding or interview process. This is not either of those, and that's your in. You remove the conflict. Absolutely, if you're doing great HR, you're doing your succession planning. You should know who's next in line. They probably start with their top 1%, as they would say, and then start working down the organization, because it's probably a hierarchical organization you're working in, most likely. That's their succession planning. They work long and hard and proud, and they're excited to have senior execs in a room talking about who's next. What you can offer is, so what are you doing with them now that you have them on a plan? Oh, we've got development plans. Great, what's on the development plan? Oh, it's very specific to that individual. Great, but what about the capability for the organization? Oh, that's not part of succession planning. Fantastic, I can help with that. So that's your succession planning side. We often get the debate about the interview side. In fact, it came up, so a real life story for you. It came across in a very negative way that someone threatened to sue one of the organizations I worked for, saying that the knowledge transfer process gave an unfair advantage to someone in the process looking to get the next role, someone that was not in the, and back to all the people that came to me and said, measure the success for me. Well, I'm getting sued because it's so effective, so you tell me. I think it's working, I guess, or they're threatening it works anyway. So it's not the interview process. There is a very separate way to get, if that person really does leave, which sometimes doesn't happen, and sometimes it's not truly a backfill, the role changes, we do a reorg. There's an interview process for who's next and what skills and competencies and role profiles and job descriptions and multiple layers of interviews and diverse candidates, and that is a very separate thing from the knowledge transfer process, which is to make sure the organization has memory and capability in the organization, almost regardless of role. So if that helps, those are the battles I've been a part of.
And that's where process mapping is important as well. And that's what we talked about, process mapping, building it into the process where we don't get in a situation where we have a crisis situation. Somebody, and we saw that, at least I see it as it's going to be the exception that we would have to form this 4-step process if we had a senior scientist leaving, one deep position, but we would try to avoid that. We don't want single points of failure. We want to have redundancy, and so the biggest thing is avoiding having it built into the process, having the knowledge transfer occurring throughout the tenure, and then avoiding the situation to get into this
where it becomes a fire.
This is heavy. I mean, then you got to go through all this to transfer the knowledge,
as opposed to every day.
You don't have the lead time, maybe.
So what were you going to ask?
We had a couple of things we weren't sure of. Were you talking about, in your experience in your organization, people who were retiring and or people who were being made redundant? Both.
So at prior organization we ran, I saw just over 1,000 teams run. At the current organization I'm at, there's just a few dozen. I think we're up to about 40 teams that have now run everything. It's from redundancies to rotations to promotions to retirements, mostly retirements. We sold off one of our sites. We did some knowledge transfer process for one of the sites that we sold off. It really depends.
You have to be quite careful with that mix, otherwise it could have really negative connotations,
Yes.
doesn't it? Oh my God,
Yes.
the KC team are coming up.
Yes.
Exactly. It's not going to get settled tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a reality. Yeah.
But
we
then
often,
those people aren't going to open up, are they?
so that's where we get into some of our best stories around the most challenging. You're not quite asking the same question, but I'll answer it this way, see if it helps.
Yeah.
We often get but I'm going to retire, and then I'm going to charge you about 10 times what I just was making because I'm mad at you. So I'm going to consult with you now. So yeah, I'll join your team, but I'm not really going to say anything. Or more overtly, no, I'm not even going to join your team. So depending on who's part of the team, we try a phrase first and we see if this clicks. The phrase we use is leave a legacy. If you say this is part of leaving a legacy, some percentage of the population will buy it and say, yes, you're right, I have been doing this. Especially people that have been doing it 20, 30, 40 years or more. We have quite a few of them. They're much more willing to leave a legacy because they feel like they are. That's part of it. The other side will, the language, the phrase we'll use is be a part of something bigger than yourself, which is the continuation of after you move on, because of course you're going to move on. It's sort of that embracing of people are keeping at a job for what, 2-3 years now on average, something like that. So if you're only going to be here for a few years anyway, make it part of something that continues on after you. It's not leave a legacy, it's part of something bigger than you. Both of those seem to work. Now, let me give you a real life story.